Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, we're going to be doing an overview of all the information that came out of the live letter number 19 for Final Fantasy XIV. Now, there was a ton of information about 2.5 in this, and there were screenshots, videos, and all of that is going to be included in this video. Now, before we touch on 2.5, they very briefly touched on patch 2.45, the naming schemes behind the Zodiac weapons and why they used classic swords and great swords as, books and axes. All they said is there were just too many swords in the past, so they found it was a better idea to switch it up and just implement them as different things other than swords in the Zodiac questline. Nothing too major. Let's just get right into patch 2.5. How about that? So the very first thing we got about patch 2.5 is the name, Before the Fall. Patch 2.5, Before the Fall. Obviously going to have some major tie-ins with the patch 2.5 story. Now, the big thing about Before the Fall is that it is considered a two-part patch, most likely because of story elements. I'm sure this is going to be 2.5 and 2.55, but the developers want us to look at it as Before the Fall Part 1 and Before the Fall Part 2. Now, let's go over all the content in Before the Fall Part 1 on this screenshot. So this is really 2.5, the meat of content of 2.5. And as you can see, we have the first arc of the patch 2.5 main scenario, so we will have a second arc in the second part of Before the Fall. Hildebrand is going to be finishing, maybe, that they said earlier that it depends on if we want Hildebrand to continue on into the expansion, and I think the consensus is we probably do. So I doubt that it's really over, but we're going to get a conclusion of probably the story that we've been dealing with him thus far. New dungeons, Keeper of the Lake, Wanderer's Palace hard mode, Amdapor Keep hard mode. I got footage of those coming up later. We have the World of Darkness, which is the conclusion of the Crystal Tower. We have Earth's Fount, which is a battle against Odin. This is the battle that has been going on at the fan festivals. We were told we were going to get an extreme version of this, so even though it only says one difficulty, either this one difficulty is going to be harder than the fan festival version, or it's going to have a hard mode and extreme mode. We're going to have to wait and see what ends up happening with that. We also have the Revenge of Gilgamesh trial, which is going to be the battle against the 8-armed Gilgamesh that people have been waiting for. And a new mystery trial. This is the only thing we really don't know anything about yet, but if I had to take a guess, it's going to have something to do with the Wandering Minstrel. Maybe even Ultima Extreme, but at this point, I'm just speculating. Let's get away from that. New rules for Frontlines, which means we're going to keep the same map, but we're going to have different rules in place. Maybe Capture the Flag, maybe Deathmatch. Who the heck knows? But we'll just have to wait and see. The one thing that's interesting here is the Ethereal Wheel. We don't know anything about that, so next live letter, hopefully they'll clear up what the Ethereal Wheel is. Maybe it's a new crafting tool. I have no idea. Again, no speculation. Let's leave that for another time. And of course, new crafting recipes, etc., etc. Other things. I noticed Savage Final Coil isn't on this list. They might not be putting that at the forefront, so we'll have to see if we actually end up getting a Savage Final Coil. Now, after they showed us everything that was going to be in Before the Fall Part 1, or at least the major points, we got a little peek at patch 2.51, as well as Before the Fall Part 2. Now, they aren't nearly as big as Before the Fall Part 1, but patch 2.51 is going to bring in the Gold Saucer, which again, I'm going to be showing you footage of a little bit later in this video, and a new chapter in the Zodiac Weapon Saga. Some of you may have thought it was over at the 125 weapon. I knew they weren't going to leave us hanging with a sub 130 weapon, so expect that to be the step that brings you up to item level 135. Also, Before the Fall Part 2 is going to have the second arc of the patch 2.5 main scenario, most likely leading us into the expansion Heavensward, and it is also going to include the Battle of Ishgard. I have a whole nother video about that, but looking forward to seeing what the Battle of Ishgard actually ends up being. Now that we've covered all of the content that is actually going to be in parts 1 and 2, let's go into some footage of some of the things that they teased in the live letter itself. The first thing is the World of Darkness, which is going to be the conclusion of the Crystal Tower story. Now, as I'm playing this video right here, first of all, I think this is beautiful. The background music is amazing. I am so looking forward to getting in there. And I noticed somebody from LBR said that this is almost Amdapori-ish, which makes sense considering that the Amdapori very much dealt with the Void, and that is pretty much where we're going right here. So looking forward to fighting all the classic bosses like Cerberus and Cloud of Darkness from Final Fantasy III. But there is some more information other than just what you're seeing here. So we found out that the loot lockout for the World of Darkness is actually going to work differently from the Circus Tower. That Yoshi P considers the way they did the loot lockout in Circus Tower a mistake, mainly talking about how the Oils and Sands and Tombstone shared a loot lockout with the actual gear, which basically made people have no appreciation for the actual gear because they just wanted the item level 130 stuff. So we don't know the exact specifics of it, but the gear from the World of Darkness and the upgrade materials, the carbon twine and the carbon coats and the encrypted tombstone, they are going to be on a separate lockout. So you won't have to worry about rolling on a piece of gear, not being able to roll on a carbon twine to upgrade your Ironworks gear, and vice versa, which is great. On top of that, there's going to be crafting items that drop inside of the World of Darkness to create Crystal Tower unique weapons. This is most likely an homage to Eureka, which dropped very rare weapons in Final Fantasy III. So since Eureka doesn't seem to be really making an appearance, unless it makes an appearance in the World of Darkness itself, this is probably an homage to how they want to implement Eureka in the Crystal Tower in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, moving away from the Crystal Tower, we got the best information about the Gold Saucer. This was by far the highlight for me. The very first thing they said about the Gold Saucer: no cash shop tie-ins. Best thing that they could have said. They asked, it was the most asked questions on the forum, so I'm very glad that they decided to answer it. Yoshi P said, absolutely not. There's going to be things that involve Gil and the Gold Saucer specific currency, which you get from playing mini games. So for anyone who was worried about that, as of right now, it seems we won't be having any tie-ins. I am waiting for an official translation of that. However, it seems pretty adamant that Yoshi P said no cash shop tie-ins. Very excited for that. Now, the Gold Saucer itself, again, showing video of this, it's beautiful. It's huge, and there's tons of mini games. Like there's bunny girls that are dancing around. There's going to be dancing contests or something like that. There's going to be dancing related events happening, I should say. Looks like we see basketball, a Gilgamesh punching machine, the hammer game, the strength testing hammer game, and on top of that we have the things that we were promised. Chocobo racing, and this was big because he clarified exactly what chocobo racing is going to be. These are going to be chocobos that are separate from your companion. So if you're leveling your companion right now, specifically for the Gold Saucer, if that is your only motivation, you may as well stop while you're at it. Now, there's going to be new chocobos that can be raised, they can be bred, you can feed them, and they are going to have unique racing stats such as stamina and speed and things like that. It's going to be really, really cool to see how that is all going to work. Now, of course, another thing we were promised is the Triple Triad card game. For those of you who don't know, this is Final Fantasy VIII card game, and it's a very simple thing at base, but there are rules and unique tricks in order to win this very basic game. If you don't know about Triple Triad, I recommend that you research it after you watch this video. So, how are we going to get the cards? A lot of people were worried that there were going to be cash shop tie-ins to how you could get the cards, but it seems that the cards are going to be gotten from beating NPCs, trading in Gold Saucer coins, and dungeon drops, which is cool because most of the ways to get it are actually playing Triple Triad and earning the coins in the Gold Saucer, but there are also going to be unique cards out there for people who want to go into dungeons and hunt for these cards or create farming parties for these cards. Now, at launch, there's not going to be too many cards, about 80, which is actually a pretty good number, but more are going to be added with future patches, unique Final Fantasy XIV cards with the characters from Final Fantasy XIV, of course. Now, of course, I said you're going to be battling NPCs, but there will be player versus player Triple Triad matches, a new PvP for Final Fantasy XIV, and there are even going to be tournaments held at the Gold Saucer. On top of that, various rules are going to be added. Those of you who played Final Fantasy VIII probably know some of these rules that we're expecting, and some of you are probably equally not thrilled about some of those rules. So, not going to get into that too much, but great information about the Gold Saucer. So happy that as of right now, it seems there are going to be no cash shop tie-ins. Thank you. But let's move on to more information. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is some footage from the 3 new dungeons that are going to be added to Final Fantasy XIV in patch 2.5, and that is the Keeper of the Lake, Amdapor Keep hard mode, and Wanderer's Palace hard mode. The background music, okay, I love the background music of Lost City of Amdapor. I love Pharaoh series. I love a lot of the background musics that they've added in the patches. These background musics are by far my favorite. All 3 of them blow everything else away. Now, they wanted to give us a little bit of background on some of these dungeons, specifically Keeper of the Lake. Keeper of the Lake, we've speculated on what it might actually be, and it seems we are going to be climbing the Agrius, which is the airship that Midgardsormr is wrapped around out in Mordona. If you go to Mordona and you look out into the lake, you'll see a giant dragon wrapped around an airship. That is Midgardsormr, the Keeper of the Lake, and we are going to be climbing the Agrius, and this is going to be a main story dungeon, so expect it to have heavy story tie-ins. It looks and sounds beautiful. Now, Amdapor Keep hard mode, This was amazing. I was so happy with Amtapor Keep hard mode. It almost looks like the void and the wildlife has taken over and been given life. New types of enemies seem to be in here as well. And overall, it just looks really, really cool and sounds really great. One big thing we noticed, Demon Wall is going to be making a return. Apparently, you can't be knocked off during his battle this time, but it's going to be quote unquote, Kamate said this, 4 times scarier. Don't know what that means. Maybe we'll have to fight 4 demon walls. Whatever it is, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, the final hard mode dungeon is Wanderer's Palace hard mode. Now, we were kind of curious why we were going to be going back there. We already took care of the Tomberries and their king. Well, I can't really tell exactly from this footage, but it seems like the Mammal Jaw, which is another lesser-known beastman race in Eorzea, they reign from Vana'diel, but they're making an appearance here in Eorzea. It seems like they've taken it over after the king died, and that there is going to be a Mammal Jaw king at the end as well. Very interested to see if the Tomberries and the Mammal Jaw are working together, if the Tomberries are serving the Mammal Jaw. It looks like the Tomberries might be being turned into slaves, but it's hard to tell. We're going to need more background information about Wanderer's Palace hard mode, but all 3 dungeons look phenomenal. I'm so excited. They also briefly touched on why we're not doing Orumbale or Darkhold or Toto Rock or what's the other dungeon, Cutter's Cry. Apparently, it took a lot of resources to remake those dungeons from 1.0 into 2.0. So since those dungeons have already been remade once, and all of the other dungeons that were added in 2.0 haven't been remade, they made all the priorities set for the new dungeons to get all hard modes. And Yoshi even says he doesn't think he's ever going to do hard modes for Orumbale and Darkhold. I think some of us don't really mind that too much. But we'll see, maybe one day he'll change his mind. Now, after the dungeons, there was a very brief DX11 comparison. Honestly, I'm not going to talk about this too much. DX11 is something that you should research on your own, how it's different from DX9. And you can see some differences here, better water motions and, waxed floors and better textures, and things just look a little bit better and are going to be slightly better optimized for computers that can actually handle the DirectX 11 system client, I should say. Now, he said systems are expected to improve their frame rate, but I'll be surprised if somebody literally just goes from DX9 to DX11 on a toaster machine and gets improved frame rates. It's not going to work like that. Interested to see what the graphical changes are going to look like. Don't worry, you can just play on the DX9 client if you want. DX11 is going to be a free separate client for anyone who has purchased the game. You will not need to pay for the DirectX 11 client. And it's really hard to see the differences in this video. Even Yoshi P himself said it's going to be really hard to see the differences in video versus actually experiencing it for yourself. And that was really the bulk of the information that we got from the live letter number 19. Like I said, I'm going to break this video down into multiple parts throughout the week, just so people can more easily find the footage that they are looking for. So if you let me know what you thought about the footage we saw here. I mean, in case you were wondering, after that, Soken came on stage and he did a Q&A, and it was good. It's just that it doesn't really pertain to the game right now. And if you're interested in that, you should research that, try to find out what was going on there. There is going to be an official translation, so hopefully information about what Soken wanted to reveal about his work process and certain songs that he's worked on. If you're interested in that, that's going to be something else entirely. So just looking through the notes real quick to see if there's anything else. They had a few announcements, a new magazine for Eorzea. Yoshi P is going to be making an appearance at the Nico Nico end of the year stream. Just a few things like that, but nothing really too much. Nothing that's really too big of a deal. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV information, whether it be a patch or the expansion. Just be sure to subscribe and you'll get all the latest information as soon as it comes out. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video, and until next time, take care.